My ex-husband asked me to marry him on the day we met and how we stayed together for 15 years. Women always in marriages or relationships and, then somehow we regret it. A doobie rap don't never do me wrong, okay? Hello, my mature, radiant, serene lady friends. It is Saturday, March 14th. I just got finished shampooing my hair for the second time because I just did it yesterday. But anyway, I realized I don't really tell you guys a whole lot of personal stuff about me, and it's not intentionally. I've been, the channel is focused on wellness, midlife, ways that I try to design my life in a way that makes weight loss and wellness easy because, aging beautifully, gracefully, and happily is the real flex, right? So with the content I've been doing lately, I haven't been getting too personal, but today I wanted to tell you guys a personal story about how my ex-husband asked me to marry him on the day we met and how we stayed together for 15 years and what happened pretty much to break down the relationship, and this whole idea that a lot of the red pill content creators, I noticed they have this thing, women always in marriages or relationships and, then somehow we regret it. And I realize some women do regret it. I, however, do not regret ending my marriage, although I'm very cool with my ex. But let me go ahead and blow dry my hair first, and we're going to get into it. Alrighty. Okay, so sometimes I can't walk and chew gum, so I had to get my hair situated and ready to press out. And I always do the back first because that's the most time consuming and hardest part. But let's get into the story time about how my ex-husband, who I was together with for 15 years, married for 14 plus years, how he asked me to marry him on the day we met. So let's rewind back to the year 2001. I moved to New York City, the Bronx to be exact, on 9/11/2001. Y'all, my life has so many ironic twists and turns. So I moved to New York on 9/11/2001. I was supposed to move there on 9/10/2001. That's when my flight was supposed to leave Atlanta Hartsfield because I moved here to Atlanta originally in 1999. So I moved to Atlanta in 99. I was here for about 2 years. And even at that time back then, I recognized in my early 20s that, you know what? Atlanta does not seem to be a place for a single woman. It seemed like a place that if you were already married, that you would be happy. That was something that I recognized at that young age. That wasn't the reason that I moved to New York. The reason I moved to New York is because I had a dream of living in New York City for my entire childhood, for as long as I can remember. But so the opportunity came about. That's a whole nother story for another time. But the opportunity came about for me to move to New York in 2001. And it was just a lucky thing. And I remember I had some friends of mine that had bought a new house, and they were like, hey, you can come, you can rent one of the rooms. And I was like, okay, I want to move here. And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to pray on it, and, I'll get back to you guys. I asked God, I was like, Lord, if it's meant for me to move to New York, then give me a sign. Y'all, I kid you not. I was working I was a logistics coordinator at the time up in Alpharetta, doing well, 20-something years old, making $40,000 a year. Ooh, you cannot tell me that, I was not doing it. I had my own place, my own car, but I'm like, how do I just leave this and go to New York? So lo and behold, not even, I want to say it was like maybe 2 weeks later, I get called into the office. We're all getting called into the office one by one by different groups of managers or whatever to let us know that they're doing a big layoff and that I'm being laid off. So I'm in the layoff meeting and I'm literally like, oh my God. So my manager and them, they're looking at me and I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I asked for a sign. I was like, I'm so excited. I'm like, thank you guys so much. This is a sign. I'm moving to New York. Because I had nothing to lose at the time. And so I was like, okay, I'll figure everything else out. So I moved to New York. So I'm supposed to leave on September 10th. Get to the airport, and to this day I'm like, was there something going on before 9/11 that the rest of the world doesn't know about? Because for whatever reason my flight was supposed to leave like around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but we keep having all of these delays. They put us on the plane, they took us off the plane, they put us back on the plane. We sat there on the hot plane for like 2 hours. People were complaining. There's a bunch of New Yorkers on the flight, so they're tripping out or whatever. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? But lo and behold, we finally leave and we land in New York at 12:05 a.m. on 9/11. So I arrive at LaGuardia Airport and I take a taxi to my new place with my friends in the Bronx off of Webster Avenue. Shout out to the Bronx. And you know, at that time I was traveling back and forth to New York a lot, like maybe once every 3 to 6 weeks. I was going to New York visiting my friends. Anyway, I was, you know, just living a young 20-something-year-old life, and now I have the opportunity to move to New York. And then by the time I get my you know, luggage and get my taxi, and then I had the taxi stop at a Jamaican restaurant because I wanted some curry goat and some rice and peas. You know, it had been a long day, so I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna eat these rice and peas. By the time I eat my food, take a shower and go to bed, it's like maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And so the next morning my friends are knocking on the door like, Tia, wake up. Oh my God, the Twin Towers. And I'm like, what's the Twin Towers? Yeah, I don't even know what the Twin Towers were. And they were like, you know, the 2 big buildings where you're coming across the bridge. And I was like, oh, okay. I think I know what y'all talking about. But anyway, that was my welcome to New York. So the job market is crazy. I'm on unemployment. And you know, I had a little bit of savings or whatever, so it was really okay because I ended up not working for like 6 months and kind of chilling or whatever, sharing the rent with my friends and all that. You know, I was cool, so it was really kind of like no big deal. So for that time I went ahead and, you know, chilled out for about 6 months, and then after that I ended up going back to work. I got a job up in Bedford Hills, New York, and I think that's where Martha Stewart has a home, which I'll tell y'all another story because I'm one of those people I grew up obsessed with Martha Stewart. So anyway, I get the job up there, and you know, everything's going cool. But then at the time, you know, when I moved to New York, my friends had immediately turned me on to the Dominican hair salons. I was at the salon every week, y'all, because it was $15 for shampoo and set. So I was living the life. Hair was always fresh. Now, it was damages, I don't know what, by the time I got back to Atlanta from that hot blow dryer and that brush. But my hair was always looking good. You know, ends was always trimmed. Like, I enjoyed New York so much, and still my favorite place to this day. I just went there for July 4th last year and for my birthday last year in October. So anyway, I'm going to the Dominican hair salon, and I meet a woman there. Now, she looks like a regular, you know, sister. And I had seen her there a couple of times. It's like we kept going to, I don't know if I was going on the same day or whatever, but, you know, I kept seeing her there. And this was probably like my 3rd or 4th time. And she would, you know, speak, I would speak, and that was it. But this one particular day, I went to the hair salon, and there was a girl named Julia that did my hair at the salon. And Julia, Dominican, but, you know, kind of just landed in New York, maybe not before that, but Julio could do some hair, but she could not really speak English. So my sister, well, let me back up. So anyway, I see this woman there, but she's in the chair getting her final process of her styling, because you know when you go to the Dominicans, you get under the blow dryer first. No, they do your roller set, then you get from under there, then they style it, and then they do your little doobie wrap and, you know, comb you down or whatever. So anyway, at one of those points, she's in Julia's chair because Julia does her hair too, and she starts speaking Spanish. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a black chick. She speaks Spanish. All right, cool. I'm like, hey, can you so now that I know that she's bilingual, I'm like, I wanted to do something different with my hair that day, and it was always kind of hard because I couldn't really communicate that well with Julia. So I was like, hey, can you help me, explain to her? So she ends up translating this conversation, and we're laughing or whatever. So now we're just talking, and she's just like, hey, where are you from? She's really, really big time into the church. So you know how some people are, major witnesses. So she really wanted me to come to church. She was like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm originally from South Carolina, but I live in Atlanta. And she was like, oh, you seem like such a sweet little girl. And so, she's probably, 10, 12 years older than I am. And so we exchange numbers, and she starts inviting me to church. Now I'm like, I did not move. I grew up in church, y'all. Clocked mad hours in church. Was constantly at church. And I'm like, I did not move to New York to be going to no doggone church. But she kept inviting me. And one day, y'all, out of the blue, I was like, you know what? She texted me and she said, or she called me and she said that they were having this event at the church and she would really like me to come. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let me go. It ain't gonna hurt to go to the little program or whatever. So y'all, I go to church that day and I meet her brother. Now, by now I'm finding out, they're from Costa Rica, and her brother's really cute. And we all sit together in church, and the brother, he makes it his business to make sure he sits by me. So every time the pastor prays and we gotta hold hands and close our eyes or whatever, he's holding my hand. And he had already whispered to me and was like, you are so beautiful. And I'm like, okay, thank you. But in my head, I'm like, man, he is really cute. And I'm a sucker for the accent and all of that. So I'm like, okay, But, young 20-something-year-old me, I was used to that. Y'all know how it was when we was in our 20s. The perfect size and all of that. So anyway, we after church, his sister invites me back to have dinner with them at her house. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. So we go over there and we spend the rest of the afternoon. We have dinner and, just conversation around the table. And they were just like, oh, this sweet little girl from South Carolina. Oh, and at that time I noticed in New York especially, my friends were from Africa that I was living with. I was always meeting foreigners. And so, my ex, he's like, we're just talking, chit-chatting, just having a good time. But, what I was saying was that a lot of foreigners in New York, they just kind of were taken back by black Southerners because they always had this thing like, oh, New Yorkers are just so ghetto and hood and they don't want to work and this and that or whatever. So in their mind, they felt like blacks from the South were a little bit more kinder, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's a whole nother story too. So hours are going by and, we're talking and everyone's just having a good time. And then it's getting kind of late. So her brother says to me, hey, I'm actually hungry again. Would you like to go to dinner? There's a really cool diner up the street. And I was like, okay, sure. So, we say goodbye to everybody. And, they're like, oh, Lord, here we go. His name is Armando. Armando and I found him another girl. Because, I guess to a certain degree, he was very, very handsome. So I'm sure they were like, okay, here you go. Trying to holler at another girl. So no big deal. He and I leave and we go to the diner. As we're at the diner, y'all, I want to say 2 or 3 girls called his phone, and he told each one of the girls that called, hey, listen, don't call me anymore because I just met the woman of my dreams. And I'm like, what? Hey, listen, don't do that. You're going to want to talk to them same girls tomorrow. Like, why are you doing that? And he's like, no, I'm really serious. I've never met anyone like you before. You're just so gorgeous. I'm just fascinated by you. So, will you marry me? Y'all at this diner. And I'm like, what? Now, mind you, we had already been at the diner for like a couple hours. We had already spent all day together. Now, in no way it was that a reason for him to propose, but y'all, he did. And the funny thing about it is, without any hesitation, I said yes to this man who asked me to marry him on the day we met. Can you believe it? I literally can't even believe it as I'm sitting here telling y'all this story. So, anyway, I'm like, yeah, but you got to get me a ring though. Now, before that, unlike most girls, I assumed that I was going to get married, but I never had a plan. Like, I had never picked out a dress in my head, or, I had never thought about what kind of ring I wanted or whatever. But immediately, I'm like, hey, I want a princess cut diamond, and I'm not skipping on this ring, boo. So if you want to marry me, you're going to have to get this ring. Long story short, this man sells his car, and 6 weeks from the day we met, he gave me a 1 carat princess cut diamond ring, and we got married. So let me back up a little bit. My parents had one of my sisters had just graduated from Hampton University. So I had just seen them in May at my sister's graduation. And so I was with this guy who was, a New Yorker. And my parents was like, okay, this guy. But they wasn't feeling him. They didn't say they wasn't feeling him, but I know they kind of wasn't feeling him. And, it wasn't no big deal to me because, I knew he wasn't necessarily my husband. So anyway, man, I curved that fast. So we went ahead and I'm going back to the old school, y'all. Going with the doobie wrap. So we were at my sister's graduation in May, y'all. At the end of May, I think, at Hampton University in Virginia, because he took me to the graduation, the other guy. And then here I am in August, calling my mom to be like, hey, Mom, guess what? I'm getting married. I just got proposed to. And she's like, to the guy we saw you with at the graduation? Like, with this disappointment in her voice. And I'm like, oh, no, not him. I met somebody else. And she's like, what? She's like, look, I don't even want to talk to you about this anymore. She's like, in my little 23-year-old mind, I'm thinking like, what's the big deal? I found somebody, I'm getting married. Well, I guess I kind of knew it was a little bit crazy, but I didn't care. So my mom was like, look, if you are calling yourself getting married to somebody and you barely know them and we just not hearing about this, you need to bring him to South Carolina. I'm not even going to mention this to your dad until you come down here and tell him yourself. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I tell Armando, hey, we got to go to South Carolina. My mom is like, she don't want to tell my dad about this. And he's like, all right, cool. We're going to go to South Carolina for Labor Day weekend. So we go to South Carolina for Labor Day weekend. And my parents fall in love with him immediately, y'all. And that's how I ended up getting married. So we immediately started planning the wedding in August of 2001. August of 2002. And we were married in September of 2003. So you might think like, wow, what a wonderful love story. And every time I've told people that, they're like, what? Oh my God. Over the years now, we ended up moving to Atlanta, and we immediately started a painting and remodeling business, Spectacular Painting and Remodeling Services. And I ran that company with him for 12 years. And you're like, well, okay, what happened to this beautiful story? Well, I'll just put it like this, not to go, because that's not really what this story time is about. But basically, we ended up running that company, which was very successful. I was able to quit my job. I was working for Progressive Insurance at the time. I worked for Progressive for 5 years. And then I quit my job in December 31st, 2009 was my last day at Progressive. We opened up our office in McDonough, not too far up the street from my house, which we had purchased the house in 2000. Okay, so I got married in 2003. We went back to New York and stayed there for 2 years, and then I came back to Atlanta in 2005. And we bought the house at the end of 2005. So anyway, bought our house. We're married now. We start this business. Now we're 5 years in. The business is doing great. And we go to open our office in McDonough. We're hiring employees. We got 5 trucks, multiple painters, and y'all, that was the most stressful time of my life. But from the time I left Progressive to the time we got divorced, we were grossing like just under $1 million a year. But that was the most stressful time of my life. And so a lot of people, when I see some of this content and I hear people saying, oh, women, like the red pill content creators specifically, they're like, women are always ending marriages, and a lot of times they regret it. That's not necessarily my case. My ex-husband and I, we're still close friends up until 2024, because when we separated in 2016, we're divorced around 2017, 2018. We still maintain like a good friendship, because I think both of us just kind of realized the stress of the business. And that's why I always say, if possible, and I know there's probably different variables, but running a business with your spouse is not for the faint at heart. It can definitely destroy a marriage. And in our case, we were never able to turn off, even if we were on vacation. We had projects going on back here in Atlanta, and it was just so stressful, and we were butting heads, and it's another story. But I wish so badly that I could just speak to Armando right now and say hi or anything, because he stayed in the business after we divorced. I moved on, switched careers, all this kind of stuff. And he ended up having a massive heart attack in 2024 and is now back in Costa Rica with his family, caring for him. And he cannot, speak or walk or anything like that. And I so badly hate that for him. But it's just funny how life turns out. And Armando, I love you like a brother, like a family member. And I wish so badly if I could just hear your voice in a normal spirits just one more time, just because we were friends, we were there for each other through thick and thin. And it's unfortunate that the marriage came to an end in a lot of ways, but also at the same time, I want nothing but for the best for him and wish he could be healed, and I want him to walk and talk again. But I also could not imagine what my life would have been like had I been in a position to be a full-time caregiver at this time in my life. So it's just funny how God works, or how life works. But the only thing I can say is God does not like ugly. And when I'm saying that, I'm talking about myself. I have always prided myself, just because in my heart, and I guess I get this from both my mom and dad, I'm just a naturally good person. I love on people. I don't have a hater bone in my body. I've never been a mean girl, but I've experienced a lot of mean girl treatment. And when I see it, it's just kind of like, okay, here's another hurt woman or whatever. She got problems, and Lord, pray for her. But I know for a fact that being a good person, being somebody who's loving and always just forgiving people and seeing and just trying to see, the good in them despite them being in a bad place and treating me poorly, I can just, ignore it and probably just not deal with the person or whatever. But God is good. That's all I can say. So that's what I wanted to say about that. It's not always that women in relationships and regret it. Sometimes we end them because, that's a form of choosing yourself in that moment. I knew if I stayed in that relationship, I used to say it. I told my mom this. I told some friends this, like, y'all, I don't think I could survive this. Like, this is just too much stress. It's just too much. The marriage is breaking down. The business, like, it's just too much. If I stay here, I don't think I will make it out alive. Like, I don't think I would live through this. And one day in 2016, I literally just packed everything I could fit in my car. And I drove to South Carolina and just told my mom and dad, hey, I'm not leaving, and I will just figure it out. And I had to start my life completely over at 39. It was scary. It was crazy. But if I had it all to do over again, I would. So switching gears to another conversation about relationships, Melissa Ford sat down with another young lady. She has a really popular podcast. I'm gonna put it here on the screen. I don't remember her name. I don't really follow the podcast that much, but I kept seeing this pop up in my feed, so I wanted to watch it. And Melissa Ford was talking about, dating men of means and things of that nature. Now, when I met my ex-husband, he was a painter. And my dad was blue collar. He did pretty well and took care of me and my sister. So I guess I never really looked at men as someone to be a provider in the sense that they have to be like super, super well. Have I been through all those little phases in life? Of course. But I always wanted to be with someone who genuinely chose me, who genuinely loved me. And so that always took precedence over anything else. So not too much has changed in that sense. I have gone through different phases, but at my core, that's how I chose relationships. So anyway, she was talking about how when you're with a man of means, that a lot of times you don't get the love, you don't get the validation, you get kind of like, you're put over here, and I know that that's not the case all the time, but in my personal experience, my ex-boyfriend from when I was in college, the first one was he was in college, so I had that type of, gifts and this and that. Even my boyfriend in high school, gifts, jewelry, sneakers, all the stuff we loved in the 90s. So when I'm in college in the late 90s, in 96, I met my other ex-boyfriend, and we were together for about 3.5 years. So I met him at 18 years old, and he just so happened to have survived a plane crash. He survived a plane crash in 1994. So when I meet him in 1996, he's gotten like a few $1 million settlement. He had a clothing store, restaurant, recording studio. The clothing store was like an urban hip hop store. I used to fly to Atlanta just to buy stuff and come back. I'd be at the Paramount for, the Magic Show and all the different shows that they would have for the, where you order the stuff for the next season and all that. So I was doing that at 19 between college or whatever. And so I had those experiences, and with him, I was 18 when I met him, and he was 26, 27. He's 8 years older than I am. And so was my ex-husband. I always liked older guys. And so dated him for a while, and he was completely controlling, completely possessive. So I went through all of that, and that's how I ended up in Atlanta. Because y'all, this man climbed. Okay, we were living together, and I decided one day, and I convinced him. Y'all, this was the 90s. If you know, if you were there, you already know what time it was and how it was going down, and how some of us women were just kind of attracted to that, or not necessarily that we were attracted to it, but it was kind of hard, I guess, to say no to somebody, pushing up on you with money and all this kind of stuff. Like, I remember my parents were mad at me because I was not being in my room at a certain time, and my dad and my mom, they threatened to take my car, and my boyfriend was like, okay, well, tell them to come get it. I'll just get you another one. And my parents were I'm so sorry, Mom and Dad, because I know this hurt y'all back then. But they came and got my car, and he bought me a 1996 Honda Accord Coupe white with a gray leather interior the very next day. And so, whatever. That's a whole nother story. Me and my parents are good. Rest in peace to my dad. Oh my God, his birthday was this past Monday, so last week was kind of rough for me. But yeah, so back to the story with him. He was possessive, controlling. Like, his friends couldn't even look at me for 2 seconds. So I kind of had like a lot of experiences very young dealing with men who had money and means, or who would buy you stuff. But the flip side of that, so that kind of solidified why I made relationships decisions a different kind of way, where, yeah, I definitely don't want somebody who's broken, can't take care of themselves, but I also wanted to see, like, who's the person who has a heart, who's kind, who just likes me for me, and that kind of thing. So Yeah, so anyway, Melissa was talking about all of that, and it was a very interesting conversation. At the end of the day, they did kind of make it seem like what she was saying was so profound, because she was like, oh, I'm good. You know, I got my friends. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I really don't need a man. But if he comes along, you know, I'd be happy with that too. And I'm like, okay, that wasn't really that profound. I think that's where most women are, who actually want to be in a relationship, who actually admit that they want to be in a relationship. But of course, we're fine without it. But anyway, that's a little bit about my past. I'm still trying to figure out, what is this pick me thing? Like, what does that really mean? Like, my mom and dad were married from the time I was born up until my dad passed away. So they were married for 48 years until my dad passed. And we're together, I think, 2 or 3 years before that. So they got like 50 plus years in the game. My mom has always been a traditional woman. I grew up with my mom doing my hair and watching Martha Stewart. And when I was a freshman in high school and freshman in college, my Martha Stewart magazine subscription. How many of you had a Martha Stewart magazine subscription in college at 18 years old? My mom, you know, that's kind of how she influenced me. She loves to bake. She loves to cook. I love to cook. I'm not necessarily a baker, but I will bake. I love to decorate and, you know, house decor, all the things Martha Stewart I just naturally love. So if a man comes into my life, they naturally get to partake in that. Now, am I a slave for somebody? No, but I do think that just by me having those kind of ways, made it easier to have a man to pick me, I guess. I don't know. But tell me, what I'm still trying to figure out, what does pick me even mean? Because I'm like, I got to clean my house regardless if a man is here or not. I got to cook regardless if a man's here or not. So I don't really understand what a pick me really means. Now, if you're performing to get a man to like you, that's one thing, because my ex-husband, who asked me to marry him on the day that we met, he didn't know what I was capable of doing or not. When he said it, he just looked at me and was like, okay, I like how she carries herself. I like how she's behaving in church. There's just something about her aura that I liked. And he just said that based on our conversation, he could just tell that I was very responsible. And so when we're together, I mean, I cook most of the time, but he cooked too. But he was a very hard worker, very good provider. So, you know, that was not a thing. But I'm still trying to figure out. And then there's another piece to this equation. There's a study, I think it's called bioendocrinology, and that is the study of hormones, I believe. And so it's just my belief that we know that when estrogen drops and things like that, or if your testosterone is raising or rising or whatever, then it might have you in like a bitchy mood, or you might, you know, whatever, all the things that come with your estrogen dropping, meaning that your hormones can affect your behavior. But in my mind, I was like, well, if your hormones can affect your behavior, then can your behavior affect your hormones? And I think I Googled it a while back, and the answer was yes. And so for me, I can appreciate the fact that, you know, by cooking, cleaning, that actually helps me to be soft and, you know, be feminine and actually enjoy those things even more, and actually create more estrogen through my behavior. So hormones affect behavior, but if I'm not mistaken, and you can Google this or ChatGPT this, I want to say that I confirm that your behavior can also affect your hormones. So for me, ginger roll things, I would hope that that has a positive effect on my hormones. But what does pick me even mean? I'm literally trying to figure out, what does that mean? Am I a pick me? I don't know. I really don't know. I kind of enjoyed really having this chat with y'all, because it was kind of cathartic and therapeutic in a sense. So just going down memory lane. I am going to get my nails done today, and I actually have a date tonight. We're going to Super H to get some things. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next clip. I've done enough talking for now. Okay, I'm back, y'all, and ready to go out. I don't have time to get my eyebrows done. So I think I'm gonna get them done after I get my nails done. And then hopefully I can have all that done before Honey Bear is here to pick me up at 6 o'clock. So let me tell you, a doobie wrap don't never do me wrong, okay? All right, now I just gotta get this part situated. Hold on, y'all. It was gonna take me forever to get that part right, but I had to stop using the edge control, y'all, because that stuff ripped my doggone edges out when I had that sewing. So I've just been putting moisturizer on my edges now. I don't have time to tie them back down. But yeah, I just put on a little bit of primer and some MAC powder foundation, which is what I'll put on when I don't feel like really doing my makeup, but I want to do a little something. And so I'm putting on some moisturizer on these edges because I'm letting them kind of softly grow back. And put a little bit of I love when my hair gets back this length when I'm doing my grow out. And I gotta put just a little bit of hair serum on. Just a little bit because I want it to stay nice and bouncy, but a little shine to it. Oh yeah, and I'm heading out. Oh, let me show you what I'm wearing. So I am wearing today just a pair of, these little jeans are, little wide legs are kind of growing in on me. I think I got these at Marshall's. This is by Nasty Gal, this sweater. I've had it for several years now. And these are some little slides by Franco Sarto that I've had for a few years. And my little Louis Vuitton Speedy. So this is the look for nails and a very casual date night tonight. So see y'all in a little bit. See, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. The major difference. I'm back to my old guy and girl from my pedicure manicure today, and I love this sheer collection. This actually reminds me of a color that I was getting back in the early 2000s in New York. OPI had this color called Sushimi Salmon that I wore all the time. That was my signature color back then. And so when I saw this new color today in the sheer collection, I was like, oh, that's it. But look at that, y'all. Nice, dainty, demure, slim. Not that big, bulky crap that I hate. I despise, literally despise a bulky nail. I don't know why people do that or wear that.
People, they're still taking people in. We want all our checks.
Cheers, babe.
Cheers, babe.
What?
Gummy thing. Doing by mistake. I suck one up by mistake.
Good, we got some food. So hungry.
I don't know about the out there through the rice or something.
Oh, you thought it was gonna be fried rice?
Right.